Take approve of the agenda, please. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor, that the March 31st, 2026 Budget Council meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
Seconder, Councilor Noxana. All in favor? Carried. New business 2026 to 2020 or 2030 budget package. Recommendation, please. Councilor Noxana.
That council receives the 2026 to 2030 budget package for discussion.
Seconder, Councilor Bertrand. All in favor? Carried. Ms. Scott, presentation first.
Yes, the FIT team has prepared a budget presentation to walk council through what is in front of you tonight. So I will ask the FIT team to proceed with their presentation.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm just going to pop the presentation on screen here. There we go. Okay. So we'll just start with the agenda today. We're hoping to cover quite a bit of ground. We'll see what happens. In my experience, generally, we're able to cover capital over 2 meetings. We do have the option of continuing the capital discussions after today's meeting, but we've designed the presentation to be as efficient as possible while allowing the necessary discussion for decision making. So we'll talk a bit about, we'll go over again the budget principles utilized to prepare the budget this year, just for the benefit of those that may be in the council chambers or people watching from home. I know council was brought up to speed on those at the last meeting. The forecasted tax increase has changed, so we'll go over what the forecasted tax increase looks like for the next 5 years, as well as what's changed that since the last meeting. We had some direction from council to bring back some information at the last meeting, so we've got all of that information available, as well as any corrections or adjustments to the budgets that have taken place. And then Ms. Scott asked us to prepare a quick asset management analysis of some of the district's assets, or at least its core assets. It provides a high level context for your capital spending over the long term, as well as what could impact your reserves. So we've done that, which leads well into your reserve forecasts. And then finally, we're talking about your capital and special project budget requests. We opted to combine your special projects and capital budget requests by department. We thought that was the most efficient way to go about it. Really, the difference between special projects and capital is that capital expenditures are for things with physical substance. Special projects are similar in that they're infrequent or one-time budget requests and significant. So they need to be funded with one-time revenues as opposed to ongoing revenues, similar to capital. And we hope to discuss as we go through each project if there are operating impacts. So the majority of the projects that you'll have before you, although they're new in terms of their inclusion in the financial plan, they are typically life cycle replacement of existing assets to support existing services. For the capital projects or special projects that we believe expand your level of service, we've tried to identify those separately so council will understand that approval of those items will result in additional operating expenses in future years. So council's been provided with the consolidated budget again. We've been through operations at the last meeting. However, council should feel welcome to ask any questions about any part of the budget at any point if you wish. And like I said, we'll introduce the initial forecast tax increase as we review everything. So I'll go through the budget principles in a bit more quicker fashion than last meeting. Again, just because it's the second time, but for the benefits of the folks that are joining us for the first time. Again, the principle here that we begin with is that the financial plan should reflect council's service level vision for its community. And it should include all specific directions that staff have collected from council through the year that impact the budget as well as your strategic plan. So in our mind, financial planning never really ends. We just pause and put it in a formal document once every single year. But council can provide direction to staff throughout the year that impacts the budget on an ongoing basis. We've included what we use the term forced growth. Forced growth is essentially the funding increases that are required to maintain existing services. Another term that is, I think, more intuitive is cost escalation. So we're going to talk about specific cost escalation factors, fuel being one of those ones that we've revised since the last meeting for obvious reason. In terms of council direction, typically what we like to do is we certainly listen to the feedback of individual councillors. We listen to the feedback from the public. We certainly look for mistakes or enhancements. However, if there's a material change that a councillor wants to see in the financial plan, we do want to hear from the entirety of council in the form of a council motion. That ensures that staff aren't cherry picking what things go in the budget, but in fact, the budget reflects all of council's desire. Now, the funding source alignment principle becomes a bit more relevant for the special projects and capital projects because most of the capital projects themselves are one-time or infrequent. So you'll see some renovations that are being recommended in the capital project. Those renovations will take place, once every 5, 10, 15 years. So you need to line up funding for that on an infrequent basis. And in order to do that, you want to choose the right funding sources as to maintain a steady tax increase or steady tax rates as opposed to volatile tax rates. So you will see that most of the funding sources recommended for capital and special projects are things like surplus, because those are finite. They're things like reserves, because those are designed specifically for capital, and or grants and donations, etc. So I like to remind council that the financial plan bylaw provides expenditure authority for all 5 years. If the district abides by the idea here, then operations can continue to deliver those projects throughout the entire 5-year. So we do encourage the directors to populate a 5-year budget, and we discuss all of those capital projects that span the entire 5 years during preparation. And that way they can see what's coming, they can prepare for it, and they can continue operations efficiently in that way. Every year, assuming that council is generally pleased with the last year's 5-year financial plan, the budget process really becomes a refinement exercise. So are there any new priorities that have cropped up since the last time? Are there new estimates, new economic conditions, new priorities that offset previous priorities? Any projects that in the 2025 year of the last year's financial plan that are still underway have automatically had funding carried forward. And you'll find that during the presentation today, I don't discuss any projects that have carry forward funding. Now, council at its discretion can inquire, make adjustments to any of those projects. However, I'm not going to automatically bring those up. So just keep that in mind. All of the projects are displayed in detail in your budget package. But during the presentation, I'm not going to specifically I'm not going to specifically discuss any carry forward projects. Okay. So in terms of the budget process, we're at the public presentation stage. So we believe that we have integrated all of council direction and any economic condition information that impacts the budget. And we've rolled over the current operating budget, assuming service levels remain the same, except in the case where council has directed new service levels. And we're working towards that bylaw adoption statutory deadline in May. And this is what we've got as a potential timeline after today. We've got April 8th if we need to continue the discussion around capital budgets and reserves. So if we don't get through everything today, we've got some extra time that we can utilize, and we've also got some space to conclude and go back and look at anything in the entire consolidated budget in the middle of April. That'll give us enough time for the 2 meetings required for bylaw adoption, one in April and one in May.
Okay, I'm just gonna stop. It's just one quick question. I know the April 20th doesn't work because we want to look at readings after our Let's Talk.
Okay, that's a good note. Thank you for that. And who knows, maybe we'll make good progress today and April, all those meeting dates move back by one date. So we won't need April 8th to go through capital budget, but we can go through the consolidated budget, offer any last thoughts April 8th, and then first, second, third, and an earlier date. So we'll revisit that with Ms. Scott.
Okay.
Okay, the next page here, again, I'd like to begin with what adoption of the current state of the budget would look like in terms of a tax increase for your community. You notice the forecasted tax increase for 2026 has gone down. In an original financial plan draft, it was around 5.6%. It's now been revised to 5.26%. Much of that was as a result of recognizing some grant revenue, operating grant revenue that should have been integrated into the first draft. So that was an error in the nice direction. Sometimes errors occur in the other direction as well. Although the total tax increase has gone down, there were some refinements to some of the expenditures that have gone up, more specifically fuel, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. So council can impact this tax increase in a number of ways. Council can decline to approve any of those line items that are directly contributing to the tax increase. Council could also direct that staff early reduce the tax increase by reducing the regular cost escalation. In our opinion, that would slightly reduce your level of service. Might not be noticeable in the first year, but that sort of practice year after year results in noticeable differences to your service levels. So there's a couple things there. Or, I have seen municipalities direct that staff just come up with some ideas for specific service level reductions that could take place to reduce the tax increase. So there's various options there. So I'm not going to go over the high level notes because none of this has changed since the last one. However, I will go over some of the follow-up questions, the answers to some of the follow-up that was asked last time, as well as changes from the last budget. So the golf course road capital project, Peter, if I could ask you if you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there were some carry forward funds not originally included in the draft budget. So we've carried forward those funds. So it doesn't impact your reserve forecast or your tax increases. We've just carried forward the remaining balance of that. Is that right? Yeah. Good. Thank you very much. Also, we've noticed a significant increase in fuel, as I'm sure everyone has. We looked at the fuel index, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. We integrated in the economic development grant. That was the main source of the reduced tax increase, forecasted tax increase. So that was just something that wasn't integrated. We've provided information that council requested on investment returns. So that will be included in an upcoming slide. We've also put more detail together in regards to government transfers or grants. So council was asking for that information. And the net impact of the expanded fitness program has been revised. It was incorrectly costed on your tax increase slide. So if I'll go back up to that slide now, you'll see there is, it's a 0.1% tax increase net impact. I believe it was stated as being higher before. And that didn't change the underlying numbers in the budget. It just was displayed differently. Staff also have additional information in response to some of council's question about that potential level of service increase or restoration of service levels as well for council. So let's talk about fuel a little bit. So fuel prices have increased 25% since the last budget meeting we had. We used a fuel index to compute that, and this was still 5 days ago. So I still think it's relatively relevant. And so you will see we've included here for your information additional the actuals from 2024 and 2025 and what the budgets will be. There's just a little mistake in the slide here where it says we've put $200,000 as the actual for 2026. That's meant to be the budget. So we're proposing a $200,000 fuel budget, and that will represent approximately 25% increase to the actuals of 2025. So should fuel prices persist at the levels that they are now, that should be sufficient to maintain the service levels that they support.
If I can just interrupt for a second, Ms. Scott, I thought we were locked into a certain price for fuel as per the contract.
Pardon me, Your Worship, I sorry.
I was just asking Ms. Scott, I thought we were locked into a fuel cost.
I will ask the Director of Operations if he can provide that information to council about our fuel costs.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. We are not locked into a set rate. We get a discounted rate based off the fuel that we purchase.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question that came from council was a bit more detail on the investment returns. And so what you can see here now is the 2025 actuals are projected, so they're not final at this point, as the audit is still underway. But you'll see that the projected actuals are similar to what they were in the previous year, close to $1.8 million. We've maintained the same budget as last year, being $1.3 million. We can increase that budget if council desires. However, we would recommend that any increase in revenue from the investment returns should be offset by a transfer to reserve, specifically a transfer to your capital reserves. The rationale behind that is that, by statute, any monies that are in your reserves, the investment revenue that is earned on those reserves has to remain within those reserves. So even if we see an increase to investment revenues, typically by statute, those investment returns have to stay within the reserve. So it's not like it's available to reduce your tax increase or general surplus. Now, that's not black and white. In some cases, the district will have just a general surplus. And you'll notice when we prepare the reserve forecast, your general surplus balance is there. There's a general surplus, I believe, of $17 million. So your surplus does generate investment returns, some of which reduces your tax increase. So if investment returns go up significantly, a portion of that could be used to reduce your tax increase. I still don't recommend, I recommend against that only because investment returns are, of course, variable. So if in the short term investment returns go up, you will then have to increase your taxes in the future to offset any investment returns that go down. So again, we recommend if you do increase the budget there, that you offset it with a transfer reserve, or you do what many other municipalities do and you just maintain the same investment return budget, and then when you calculate your actuals, that gets transferred to reserve at the end of the year. On the next slide here, we have in response to some of council's questions about government transfers, we've broken down the $6.2 million in budgeted grants for 2026 into what we thought would be useful categories. Many of the categories here are ongoing operating grants or ongoing grants that support capital. So they will be utilized and or put into reserve. The first one being there, the CCBF, Canada Community Building Fund. So that goes straight to a reserve, and then those reserves are used for capital per the agreement with the province. Also a small communities grant, which is an operating reserve or an operating grant. So that's utilized to fund operations. We did increase the Peace River Agreement forecast. So we think that we'll be able to collect between $2.2, $2.3 million in 2026, but that all of course goes to your reserve. There's a $2 million grant in the budget for the connectivity special project. So that's conditional. That project is conditional on that grant being successful and its The chance of success is undetermined at this point. There's also a couple grants through the NDIT, one being the Hope Trust, the Hope Truck, pardon me, and one being another grant as well. And then you've got about $640,000 in special projects that are conditionally granted by, conditionally funded by grants. Some of those grants are have a high chance of success. Some of them are not. Some of them are just contingent on us finding an appropriate grant. For the proposed planning technician new position, $71,250 of that is being proposed to be funded from the South Peace Mackenzie Trust. So we separated that because that's a separate council request. That separate request is generally funded by one-time funding sources, so not by taxation. You've got $32,000 in conditional grants for the wildland protective equipment, and then spray perk conditional grant of $500,000. I'm just going to pause there, Mr. Chair, to ask if council wanted to ask any further questions about the grants, because I know that was brought up at the last meeting.
Keith? Good? Nope, we're good.
Okay, moving on. Okay, so as mentioned, Ms. Scott asked us to prepare a high-level asset management analysis on your core assets. So there are many assets that were excluded from the analysis, but like most municipalities, your core assets make up the majority of your replacement value, and therefore I'll call it future liability or future expectation of replacement costs. So what we did was, that was the first thing we did, was we estimated the cost of those core assets. And then we tried to determine, well, what does that look like in an annualized basis? And why that's important is because it establishes what would be a sustainable funding target. I'll demonstrate what I mean by that and why that's important in the coming slides. And then what we did was we compared sustainable funding target to actual funding. Now, there's almost always an annual funding gap that results from this. So if you compare what your actual funding is, how much money are you setting aside in reserves right now? How much money are you using to directly fund capital? How much grant revenue do you get in the CCBF to fund capital? When you compare all that to what the annualized cost of your infrastructure is, it's usually quite a bit lower. And that's very common in municipalities. And I've done several long-term financial plans ranging in, let's call it the sustainability percentage of between 30% and 70%. So I haven't seen better than 70% in my career. And unfortunately, I am getting older, so it's been a little while. But what inevitably happens with capital is that capital has to get replaced. So at some point, the storm drain is beyond, is in condition where continuing to not replace it would have significant impacts on the community. And so all of that cost comes due for replacement in a compressed time frame, and the municipalities have to increase taxes. So even if you have a funding gap now, that funding gap gets resolved at some point, just with very steep tax and utility fee increases at that time. So the opportunity for municipalities is to really spread that cost out over its life cycle. And there's some benefits to that council can consider. So just before I give you those numbers, you've seen those numbers in the attachment, some of the limitations. We use unit rates that are based on a 2025 number of studies that we did with a number of clients. So these unit rates were not developed specifically for Tumbler Ridge, but what we found was when we compared unit rates among communities, they were all within a pretty good range. So we felt pretty confident that that our findings could be relied upon. I understand Tumbler Ridge has unique geographical considerations, so a more comprehensive study would recommend that Tumbler Ridge specific unit rates be developed. The study excluded airport infrastructure because it's quite unique, needs to be looked at very specifically. We didn't do machinery, equipment, fire apparatus, or land improvements. although those are important service providing assets, as a percentage of your total asset value, they're small, and they would take up a lot of time to calculate. So just in the interest of time, we excluded it. And what we did was we used useful lives using National Asset Management Standard averages. They produce a survey that produces useful life averages. But again, every community can choose a useful life that represents the level of service they want to provide. So your director of operations may say, we really need to choose a useful life for our water mains of 70 because a water main break would be catastrophic to servicing our essential services. And council agrees with that. So you choose a useful life that provides a service level and risk portfolio that is different than another community. So that's something you would want to do as well. But these averages are pretty good, and they provide a pretty good sense of when your assets will come due for replacement, based on people's general judgment. So high-level findings are as follows. The current replacement costs for the core assets included in the study were about $420 million. So, right off the bat, that usually provides the community with the good context of how many the value of assets that are under the management of you and your staff. So you have a stewardship responsibility for public assets pursuant to the community charter. Your staff have that fiduciary duty to maintain, and it's a big portfolio. $420 million for a small community is quite a lot. And when you include the assets that were excluded from the study, you're probably looking at over $500 million. And then, who knows, that number could go up or down a little bit depending on the unit rate specificity. So we determine annual sustainable funding. I'll go a bit more into this in the coming slides again, but we say if we take all of those assets and we divide them by their useful life, it's going to cost the district at current dollars $6.3 million per year. Now that's going to accumulate. You don't have to spend $6.3 million tomorrow because your assets aren't due for replacement in that amount, but it'll add up 12 million, 18 million, 24 million. Before you know it, a whole bunch of assets come due for replacement and you need $30 million. Do you have that in reserve? Will you have to take on debt? Will you have to increase taxes? Those are all options when that happens. If you have some foresight of when that's going to happen, that really provides council with the opportunity to plan in advance and as best as possible mitigate the financial impacts to your community, or spread it out. So with that, we've calculated that the annual funding gap is between $2.5 and $4.5 million. The reason for that $2 million range there is your PRA. Do you want to assume that you'll have PRA forever, or do you want to assume you'll have PRA funds for a short period? If PRA funds are going to go away in the near future, your funding gap is going to be $4.5 million. If you think you'll have PRA for a sustained period of time, it'll be $2.5 million. You don't know the future. I don't know the future. So typically you plan for somewhere in the middle, and that's usually a pretty well-informed way to go. So just to demonstrate this concept again, I always use a fire truck because everyone can kind of picture a fire truck, and the life of a fire truck is kind of predictable. You're using NFPA standards quite often to predict when you're replacing your fire truck. So in this example, assume that to replace your fire truck, it's $1.5 million, and you got a 15-year useful life. I choose that number just to make the calculation easy. So if you set aside $100,000 every single year in your reserve, you're going to have $1.5 million when your fire truck comes due for replacement. So you'll be taxing to put that $100,000 in your reserve. So everybody that's living in your community every single year is going to be paying taxes toward the replacement of your fire truck. That seems fair. I know there's other conditions to consider when you're using the term fair, but that seems fair. The alternative is you put nothing in your reserve, then when it comes due for replacement, you take on debt or you increase taxes and you pay the debt servicing. Debt servicing often, almost always exceeds what it would have cost had you used the reserve process. So this is just an example. This is why capital can be so frustrating for municipalities to plan for, is because this is the graph to demonstrate when this is total hypothetical, by the way, But this is the graph that demonstrates when you're replacing your fire truck, right? You replace it in 2026, there's nothing. And then in 2041, you have to replace it. So if you're serving on council from 2033 to 2037, and you're not having to put any money in reserves, because there's no capital expenditures, you think everything is fine and dandy until 2041 comes around and you've got to increase taxes all of a sudden to pay for debt servicing. So you can prepare in advance for that. If we paid for that fire truck in 2041 using debt, we would have to pay $138,000 per year because the debt servicing adds up. However, if you put aside funds in advance, you can put aside less than $100,000 in advance because you're going to earn those investment returns that have to stay in the reserves. So it's all about balancing the financial impact to your current constituents and lessening the life cycle costs to your future constituents as well. And I know that's a difficult balance for council to consider. But I just like to demonstrate this example because it's an opportunity. This is not a directive. Council can do what they want, and you have to balance various conflicting interests in your community. So I get that. But just using an example here where we've got an asset that we're estimating is worth $100,000 but has an 80-year useful life, that might be your PVC for storm or water or sanitary sewer. So if you were to set aside funds over that life cycle evenly, you would only have to put aside 40 cents on the dollar because the remaining funding could come from investment returns. So, and this is assuming a 2% year-over-year compounding investment return, which is pretty conservative comparing when you think about the various investment vehicles you have available to you through the Municipal Finance Authority. So in this very conservative example, setting aside funds over the life cycle, you are funding 60% of it using investment returns. So one could say that overall, to all of the constituents that use that pipe over its life cycle, this method costs less. But it does require you to take money from your constituents now, put it in reserves, as opposed to deferring taking money from your constituents, taking it later and costing more. So there's some fairness and equity considerations to do with that. So I don't, I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong answer. So, So there we go. So that pretty well summarizes, your asset management analysis. The reason there again is because you've got some options here. We're going to look at your reserves. We're going to look at the pressure you have to use those reserves to fund some of your capital, and how are those reserves going to look after the 5-year period? Is it sustainable? It will be sustainable in the short term, I can tell you that, because we've done the forecast for the reserves. But council might want to think about the life cycle sustainability, which is the life cycle of all of those assets. So in that vein, what we've done is we've prepared reserve forecasts over the 5-year period that's being proposed. And so we can provide a level of assurance to council that if you choose to approve everything that's being proposed to you in the capital plan, what will happen to your reserves? Well, it looks like it'll go up by $22.8 million. Now, a huge portion of that is your general reserve, which is due to your tax stabilization reserve, right? So last year, we'll talk about this a bit more, but last year you got new industry tax base, and I think you wisely put most of that aside into reserve. And so it's going to constantly feed that reserve until you decide otherwise. We're going to recommend that you put it into your general reserve as opposed to your tax stabilization reserve. But nevertheless, it's going to constantly feed that. So all of a sudden, it looks like you have a sustainable funding source for much of your assets, so long as that industry tax base remains there. Without that, you would be slightly unsustainable, right? So if you take away $27.5 million over that 5 years, you're basically down $5 million in your reserves. So without that utility, that that new utility tax base, or pardon me, I keep saying utility, but it's major industry tax base, you wouldn't have the funds not only in the short, you would have the funds in the short term, but your reserve balances would go down. So it's indicative of not being sustainable. Okay, so it's just got a bit more detail there in case you want to have a look at that. And so let's talk about your tax stabilization reserve. So as council is likely aware, last year, your industry tax base grew about $50.5 million. So that's non-market change. That's new business that came into town, not existing business. So that was worth about $6.3 million. And like I said, I think you wisely didn't just take that all as a tax decrease, because if you took that all in as a tax decrease, the second that major industry leaves town, if that were to happen, you would have a huge tax increase for the remaining citizens. Now, what you did was you said, let's take $5.7 million of that. Let's put that in a reserve, okay? And we'll use $0.6 million of that to keep the tax rates low. And so that $0.6 million basically, I would say, repressed a tax increase of 5.4%. So, let's just model this. Again, if your major industry tax base, this specific one, left tomorrow, you would have to find basically $500,000, $0.6 million, to sustain your existing service levels. So that's not a terrible situation to be in whatsoever. That's the type of tax increase that you could phase in over many years. I was a CFO for some time for the city of Colwood, and there they had gravel pits that was a source of major tax base. When that got rezoned to residential because the major industry left, there was over a 20% tax increase that was required. So the community had been relying significantly on that tax base. So you've done a smart thing by creating this tax stabilization reserve. You've mitigated the risk that if industry were to leave, that your citizens would face major financial burden. So this is what your bylaw says. Your bylaw says that between 5 and 10% of Class 4 major industries shall be contributed annually. And money shall be contributed each year until the balance represents 1 year of major industry tax revenue. Whether or not 1 year of major industry tax revenue is sufficient to mitigate the risk of industry leaving your community is up to interpretation. I'm not an economist. I don't know what the likelihood of continued industry investment in your community is, for how long, et cetera, et cetera. But that's the target that you chose in your bylaw. And according to that target, you will have approximately $10 million in your tax stabilization reserve already by the end of 2025. We're just finalizing the numbers. And about 1 year major industry tax revenue, that's including the industry that was there before, is about 10.7 million. So you're basically at that target that your bylaw establishes. So the question is, what do you want to do now? Do you want to raise that target? Right now, you're at 1 year's major industry tax revenue. Maybe you want to increase that to 2 or 3 years, and you got greater, you've reduced risk. Or do you want to use those funds for something else? And what we recommended initially here is that you basically move that money into your general reserve. The general reserve is subject to council approval use. So just because you put in the general reserve doesn't mean staff or the community can use it for anything. Council has to approve the use of that reserve. So that maintains some flexibility while council decides strategically, how do we want to handle this major industry tax revenue moving forward? Maybe you want to do a little bit of an economic analysis to determine the viability of the industry staying around. My understanding is that it's mining operations. I don't know the viability of mining operations personally. So what we're saying in this recommended motion here is, okay, fill up your tax stabilization reserve to what the bylaw says you should. and the remainder, put it in your general reserve, and also tell staff to go and prepare an outline, a report outlining options. And I don't think you will have time before your financial plan is due to put in due consideration into what those options should be. And I would hate to see you rush into something, and although you can always change your mind in future years anyways, but I think it's a decision that shouldn't be rushed and rushed before the financial plan. So I think I'm just gonna pause there. There's probably a lot of information thrown at you. Maybe there's some questions. And Mr. Chair, perhaps you want to discuss the possibility of putting this motion on the floor for consideration.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Bertrand?
Thank you, Mayor. Just curious question. Of the 44.9 million opening balance of our reserves, how much of our reserve money is invested to produce the 1.7 million in investment revenue?
Oh, good question.
Yeah.
You know what we could do, perhaps your CFO could answer better, but what we could certainly do is look at your most recent published financial statements, which would be 2024, and it would have, your investment total there. Because I haven't looked at what your most current value is. It shouldn't be terribly dissimilar. So I will do that unless the CFO has more current information available while I look that up.
Ms. Scott?
Yes, excuse me, I would like to ask the Director of Finance if he has that information he can provide for council.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, so we just, we adjusted for interest this last week for 2025 for the year end. And I would say majority of that reserve fund is in either long-term term investments. We have them in with different funds. We have some in the credit union in terms, and the previous director actually had a pretty good strategy and had them kind of, a mixture of 2 to 3 to 4 year terms. So we're constantly seeing those turnover. So we had 3 mature last year that have to be reinvested, and we have a bit of a cash influx just going over the year end. So I do plan to keep on putting more funds into long-term investment strategies, depending on what capital projects and stuff are coming up. So majority of the funds are invested strategically so that we have kind of funds coming up available throughout the course of the next few years. So,
Follow up?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was just curious because, we have this breakdown of where all the reserves and what accounts they are, but looking on page 99, transfers to reserves, the stabilization reserve fund balance isn't changing for the next 4 or 5 years, and I would assume that that extra money is, I'm hoping, collecting interest, but it's not really clear on which categories of these reserves are fluid for operations and which are long-term investments. So it would be helpful to kind of have another column that would say long-term invested or operationally fluid, I guess. Thank you.
Ms. Scott?
Yeah, we can take that into consideration, adding that column on there.
Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor. So my question comes to the recommendation of transferring that excess money from our major industry to our general taxation reserve, general reserve. My question is, will we be able to get investment on that? That would be my hope. If we're transferring it to whatever account, is that we're going to make money off of that money, and that seems like a smart investment plan for me. My question.
Ms. Scott?
Correct. So that would be part of the funds that we invest, and then the income revenue earned on those investments stays in that general reserve to continue building the general reserve.
Follow-up?
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, it's not in the motions, but it seems to me like if we had a pretty good presentation so far on how money can grow depending on how we invest it. You know, that money, which may be short-term because it's coming from industry, is great an opportunity that we come up with an idea of how we can just keep that money to roll into asset management into the future. Somehow, that's not quite my area of expertise, but something rattling around in my brain. Thanks.
Thanks. Councillor Julik?
I really appreciate the explanation around this. It like ticks the boxes for me. My concern, if we start to move that stuff out of general reserve, what did that look like for us in 2015 when we had the mine shut down and had some of those tax losses? And so what did that look like? So did we have enough? Like, for me, that's what that tax stabilization is for, is if or when the mine closes, that we're not taking a big hit. Because all of a sudden not getting that money, and I know there was lots of moving pieces to that. And so before I would be comfortable making this change, I would kind of want to know what that looked like to make sure that that tax stabilization fund was still set at an amount that we could take the whole thing out if we needed to cover a couple of years. And if I'm understanding correctly what we're talking about here.
So my understanding is this taxation, the thing that would cover 1 year that we have in the reserve now. Ms. Scott?
No, and in case I'm wrong, I'll ask the FIT team to jump in when I'm done, but no. So the way it was explained was that currently we're using, I think the slide was approximately $600,000 a year of the tax revenue we get from the mines. And so if the tax stabilization reserve is set at just under 6 million, that essentially we would use that 600,000 of that each year to offset what we would have been putting towards those operating expenses. Correct me, FIT team, if I've kind of explained that incorrectly.
No, spot on. If major industry left, the $5.7 million that from that tax revenue that's going into reserve would evaporate, and you would need to fill that $600,000 gap that is being used for operations. So you put yourself in a good place that way. So you'd have to either increase taxes to cover that $600,000 gap, or use your tax stabilization reserve, which has $10 million, $600,000 at a time. So that's a great question. But because you never took that into funding operations in the first place, if major industry left tomorrow, or that specific major industry left tomorrow, you'd just be stuck with basically a $500,000, $600,000 hole to fill.
But if we can just get clarity on that, it's not just the mine tax. It's major industry, is it not?
Correct, yes.
So it's not just the mines that pay in a major industry, there's oil and gas, wind, I believe, wind.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
there's multiple industries that make up that major industry tax. Just specifically last year with that increase, that was related to one specific industry, but the whole, on the whole, major industry is made up of several.
Yeah, but I'm just saying we wouldn't lose all that industry tax, just the upset of the one mine coming on board.
Potentially, yeah.
Councillor Bertrand?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think it's getting a little confusing because we have two stabilization reserve funds now. We do have the stabilization of $10 million, and that's to cover the major industry if it were to take a serious decrease. But then we also have this $5.6 million from last year called the stabilization reserve fund. So I definitely understand the motion you're proposing there, but I'm just curious on the advantages of moving that stabilization reserve fund into the general reserve. What would be the advantage, and what's the disadvantage for not doing that? The problem I've noticed over the last 7 years here is we are accounting for our assets, but it's all going into general revenue or general reserve, and we haven't really bylawed or taken the time to bylaw specific accounts to fund, for example, our roads or our infrastructure or anything like that. We just throw it into general reserve. So eventually I think we do need to take that time to really specify what those reserves are for? Because I think we are accounting quite well as far as our asset management goes. We're just not allocating it directly. We're just calling it general reserve. So curious on what the advantages are of moving that reserve fund into general reserve.
Scott?
So I just want to clarify, there's not two stabilization reserves. There is the one stabilization reserve, and the bylaw is the one that says this is your target. And so because this year we are at that target, then that's why we're proposing to put it into general reserve right now, so that council can, if they wish, direct staff to do that analysis of should we increase that stabilization reserve? Or what does this look like sustainability-wise, and present council with additional options. And so just because we're kind of in a time crunch for staff to be able to present or prepare all of those options this year, because we'll be at that, the amount that was established by bylaw, then that's why we're proposing to put it into general reserve this year, to allow staff, if council wants, to allow staff the time to prepare all of those other options. The benefit of having it in a general reserve and not assigning it to different reserves is that it's there for whatever might come up. And so, instead of putting it into asphalt, if it's in general, you can still use it for asphalt. If it's in general and all of a sudden you have a major break somewhere else, you can still use it for that, as opposed to putting it into those separate reserves. If you had a major issue in one, but you had to put this money in a different reserve, you couldn't use it for that project. So it is beneficial to leave it in a general reserve so that it's available for you to use for multiple different things, because it is hard to plan for what disaster is going to strike when.
Follow up?
Yeah, thank you. Definitely, I agree with that. So the stabilization reserve fund balance of 5.6 million, that would be new taxation this year?
Ms. Scott?
The tax stabilization balance, I believe, I don't have the slide in front of me. I think it was just over 10 million. It was 10.7 million is what's going to be in that tax stabilization reserve. And so I can ask the FIT team to clarify that. But so that essentially that 5 point whatever million was left would be what was left over after the tax stabilization reserve got to its 10.7, and that would be what was left that we would put into the general reserve. But I just want to ask the FIT team if I've got that right. I want to make sure I'm giving the right information here.
Yeah, through your worship, that's correct. The balance is about $10 million right now. You have a choice of what you're going to generate $5.7 million in this year, and it's your choice where to put it. And we're suggesting the general reserve for the reasons that Ms. Scott outlined. So yeah, you have $10 million now. You could go up to 15.7 million if you put it all there, but you have a choice of where to put that $5.7 million this year and every year in the financial plan thereafter.
Okay, one more.
Okay.
So I'm a little bit confused here because I thought that this 5.6 million was the excess from last year, having the increase of our major project or major industry. So this is telling me that, is this 5.682 million on page 99 the amount that we are collecting from major industry this year total? And we are choosing to throw it all into reserve instead of using it, any of it for operations? Or is this left over from last year's valuation bump?
No, it's taxation this year. Ms. Scott?
So to answer that question, to your worship, so last year, you were basically given $6.3 million of new revenue to spend however you want. The district chose to take $5.7 million, put it in reserve, take $500,000 to fund operation, or $0.6 million to fund operations. You got the same choice this year. $5.7 million. Do you want to continue throwing it in reserve? In which reserve? And so on.
I'm confused why we have the same choice this year. This 5.6 million was a one-time charged last year from the over?
No, so right now, if we don't, I know there is a recommendation that's done by, what do you call them, FIT? If we don't do that, that 5.6 million will go back into the stabilization surplus. So that'll put us at just under $16 million. So that's been put away. So what the suggestion is now is to put it into general reserves. So it's not new taxation.
Yep.
It's going to be the taxes this year. So normally we keep a certain amount to, whether that's to use on operational, and then the other amount goes right into, as per the motion by council last year in 2025. So this year, we still have that $5.6 million, or right around there. I mean, I guess it's probably not 100% locked down. That either we move it with this motion to a general reserve, or it will automatically go into that stabilization as per the recommendation in 2025.
Okay. I agree with going with into the general reserve. I'm just still a little confused where this money's coming from, but I'll figure that out later.
Heavy industrial tax. Councillor Hoffman?
Thank you, Mayor. Speaking to the general fund or the general reserve fund, have we looked at what our capital projects are coming up? You used the example of a 1.5 for a fire truck, and I mean, that's a perfectly fine example, it might even apply. But I know we have sewer and water rates that are separate, but did we look at what sort of capital projects are coming up over, say, the next 5 years, and if we do have sufficient reserves for that? Or is that, it just seems to me that you can do the general reserve, but you can still do the planning for when the big chunks are coming. And I'm wondering if we've done that.
Ms. Scott?
In terms of an asset management analysis, no, we haven't done that. But we have taken into consideration all of the capital projects that are proposed tonight are not necessarily for 26. Some are for 27, 28, 29, 30. So how those are going to affect these reserve balances have been included in these numbers that we've been giving you.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Ms. Scott, can we just maybe clarify the I mean, it's a value of approximate 6.3 million that we will receive this year. If the motion was to stay the same as the previous year, we would fund 5,682,407 into the stabilization reserve. That's coming from taxation to heavy industrial this year. The approximate 6.3.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to, so that, like, that's where the funds are coming from. It's going to be taxation this year. And normally, so previous, and I'm just trying to help Councilor Bertrand get where the money's coming. So it's taxation. Previous year, we would have dropped that. So if we stayed with the previous motion, it'll automatically get dropped into the stabilization reserve, 5.682. So it's not just money floating there. It's going to actually be taxation this year that we can decide to leave it as a previous motion in 2025 or change that motion to go into general reserve. But it's just not money in sitting there that we didn't use last year. It's going to be taxation on heavy industrial. I'm going to go to Councillor Julik and then Councillor Bertrand.
So I'm just going to go back to page 99 to make sure I'm fully understanding. So in the 2025 budget, it shows 5.682 million. And then in the 2026, it shows that. If we make this motion tonight, that 5.6 million will come out of that column. We would not be putting that 9.8. We would be doing 9.8 and less the 5.6, correct? If we make the motion tonight that's here in the package.
If,
Ms. Scott.
so if you make that motion tonight, that 5.6 would go into a general reserve instead of the stabilization reserve.
Right,
So the total transfers to reserves would still be the same.
Still the same, just different reserves.
Oh, okay. I just didn't see general on this page anywhere, is why.
It's above the 98.
Doesn't matter. Okay, that's basically where, because I just didn't see it on, like, where?
98.
Oh, it's
98,
on
right
a
above it,
different
just
page.
double page.
Got you. So we would transfer, but page 99, that number would look different. It would just move on to a different.
Right, so this one here, like the one year page 99 is a transfer to reserves. The other one is the reserves where they are sitting.
Right, okay.
So right now, the general is at
Oh, there it is.
0.9, so this would add $5 million to it.
Right.
Councillor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. No, I'm just trying to figure out if we're charging 5.6 extra on top of, like, this is a transfer to reserve, so is this just 5.6 million is what we collect from major industry and we're deciding to throw it all into general reserve and not operations? Is that what I'm getting at?
Ms. Scott, we are using some of what we're taxed.
We're using some of the major industry to offset operating, yes. So because of the new assessment in 2025, because of new industry, our overall tax revenue increased by that because of that increased assessment. And that continues. So we'll still continue to get this additional amount because of that increase to assessment going forward. So yes, we're using a portion of that to offset operating, but the majority of that new tax revenue we're proposing to put into either the general reserve or the tax stabilization reserve.
Okay.
Follow up?
No, I definitely understand a bit better now. It's an extra. It's not what we charge completely. It's just the extra because of the overvaluation or the new
The
valuation.
new assessment, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any other discussion, questions, comments? I have one. Don't get me wrong, it's not really an important question or important idea, but I have to use it. And it's on page 93 when you talk about the fire truck, 1.5 million, 15-year useful life due to NFPA standards. Can you explain to me how you extend the life with NFP standards?
And he kind of said that too. He just threw a number out there
Okay.
just for easy calculations. That wasn't necessarily the standard. That was just a number he threw in for easy calculations.
I agree. I just, like, again, this here is being watched by residents. And we say we have 15 years of life on a fire truck. We do have one that's been budgeted for and will arrive in this community. Worst thing I want to see is that we talked about it, we used it, it's going to arrive here, it's good for 15 years, we got to start funding for it right now. That's why I asked that question. I just wanted clarity for people that are on Zoom. Councillor Bertrand, just because it was mentioned.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just prepared to propose these recommendations about the reserves.
Please.
I'd like to move that staff be directed to transfer a total of $5.682,407 combined each year in the financial plan to the Major Industrial Taxation Revenue Reserve Fund and the General Reserve, and that the amount transferred to the Major Industrial Taxation Revenue Reserve Fund be the amount required to comply with the policy in bylaw 590, and that the remainder of the $5,682,407 be transferred to the General Reserve, and that staff be directed to prepare a report outlining reserve contribution options for council consideration.
Seconder, Councillor Julich, discussion on the motion. Call the question, all in favor? Motion's carried. All right, Ms. Scott, we can continue if you like.
Okay, I again will turn it back over to FIT to continue with their presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Believe it or not, that was the simplest council motion wording that me and AI could come up with. So I understand it's a mouthful. Appreciate your understanding with that. Okay,
I'm glad you're taking responsibility for that.
Okay, we're into the meat and potatoes of the budget now. We're going to talk about the capital budget. And I just want to talk about how we're going through it. I've heard from the city manager who's indicated that the preferred method for approving capital project will be to approve them on project by project basis. There's a couple options that municipality could follow. You can do exactly that. You can approve the entirety of a capital budget or a capital budget by departments, or you could simply tell us which projects you don't want in the financial plan. So, city manager is recommending that the new capital projects that are being requested be approved on an individual basis. And if council has any adjustments to the other capital budgets, namely the carry forwards, we can hear from you individually on those. So there's really a couple categories of capital and special projects. Oh, and by the way, we decided as I mentioned earlier, that the most efficient way would be to go through everything by department, including special projects and capital projects. So we'll be bouncing back and forth between those a little bit. So there's essentially, three categories, with the fourth being miscellaneous. Carry forwards, the reason we separate those out, those are easy. Council's already approved those. It's presumed that you want to continue with that, and the work is underway. Then there's other projects that have been approved in the 2025 financial plan, but they've been approved in like a subsequent year, 2026, 2027, 2028. Those are less certain to continue to have council support, so they're treated a little bit differently. And then you've got brand new requests. So these are the ones that council haven't seen in a financial plan, and that's what we're zeroing in on for discussion here. And then there's a miscellaneous. The reason I use miscellaneous is because, yeah, sure, maybe we had the fire hall in last year's financial plan, but we know it's a big ticket item, politically sensitive material, so we want to discuss those things separately. So I'm going to go through the community service capital budget to begin with. I know you guys are looking at the council. I'm going to try to tell you the pages in the council agenda package. We have the appendix pages there as well, but I'm not sure how that necessarily correlates to the agenda package. What we're going to do first is, in the new request, we're going to go over, well, what are the life cycle replacement requests? So if you're just doing maintenance on existing capital, if you're replacing like for like with existing capital, generally it's less controversial. There's less debate around whether or not we should proceed. There are some projects that would expand, increase, improve, enhance your level of service. They may not be a brand new asset, like for instance, front counter renovations. You might improve the standard, you might improve accessibility standards compared to now. So those should be treated and talked about a little bit differently, because they may have ongoing operating impacts, meaning you'll have to raise taxes in the future to pay for those new commitments, as opposed to just using reserves for existing. So we got a big list here. I'm going to cherry pick a couple and discuss those as we go through it. And then
I think we'll just go line by line. Line by line.
Yeah. So, Your Worship, did you want me to mention everything line by line, or is that your wish?
Yeah, I think it's just easier from council side. So whether we just run it here, if we don't have an issue, it stays in. If council has an issue, they'll just bring it forward.
Okay.
This way, nothing, I'll be honest, that way nothing is missed. There's no surprises when this budget's approved.
Great, okay. Maybe I could ask then, I could put Peter on the spot. Because Peter, I've only got the one screen going here. So if you could have the appendices open, and we can give a general description if needed as we go line by line. And then, as mentioned, the department managers are available to answer any questions. So first one is one of the simpler ones that we've got there. We've got the Stairmaster climb mill machine replacement. $15,300 is the proposed capital budget, and the funding source is surplus. I don't believe there's extra context that needs to be added at this time, but why don't we pause there if this is the way that council would like to go, and if there's any questions, or we can move right into approving or declining that request.
Thanks. Any concerns, questions, comments from council? Councilor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering about the funding source being surplus. So I definitely understand that throughout the year, the district dips into surplus for operations, and then when revenue starts coming in, it's refunded there. I'm just curious, I don't quite understand why all of these are funding source, or most of them are funding source surplus, if you could explain.
Ms. Scott.
I can ask the fit team on how they came up with the concept of funding these using surplus.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, through your worship. So there's a couple reasons there. Generally, what many municipalities will do is when they have an operating budget surplus in any given year, so they underspend or they get additional revenue, let's say it's $500,000, they then go to council and say, what would you like us to do with the surplus? We recommend you put it in an infrastructure reserve, or we recommend you use it for strategic priorities. And then those funds are moved into it. Some municipalities like Tumble Ridge don't go through that process and a surplus accumulates. In this case, I would say that there are significant surplus funds that have accumulated. I believe the balance being around $17 million. So there's an opportunity to use those funds, which are finite, right? They're not funded. You're not putting money in surplus or budgeting to put money in surplus deliberately, because you can't. So there's no guarantee that you will have surplus funds next year. So there's finite funds. So that matches well with the one-time infrequent requests that capital are. In a different universe, perhaps Tumbler Ridge would have already designated much of these surplus funds year after year as being in an infrastructure reserve, and this would say infrastructure reserve instead of surplus, but that's why it's there. So again, to summarize, you have a significant balance available to you. It matches, it's finite, and it matches a one-time infrequent capital request.
Follow up? Okay, Ms. Scott, I do have a question. If we can just get and I'll be honest, we can talk about all three pieces in my mind. Year of why we're replacing, because when I read the report, it says replace soon. I do read some of the issues with the risk of that one machine, but, I know previously we've done some upgrades within the gym facility. So if we can just get the reasoning, the year of it, and, maybe they want to talk about all three, and I'm not sure if council wants to do all three at once. That way, if there's any questions, they can be flushed out right now. But if we can just get an overview on it.
Sure. I will ask the Director of Operations, who's also currently the Acting Director of Community Services, to provide some of that information for council on the age of the equipment and why we're proposing at this time that it be upgraded and or replaced.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council. Yes, so we'll start with the Stairmaster. The Stairmaster, the brake is starting to fail. It'll no longer fully prevent the stairs from staying stationary, and they no longer make parts for it. The equipment was purchased in 2011.
Is that piece of equipment locked out right now, Ms. Scott, if it's not functioning properly?
Again, that is a question that I will ask the Director of Operations.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council. Currently, that piece of equipment is not locked out.
Ms. Scott, can I just get a reasoning again why it's replaced? Because it sounded like there was a malfunction.
Excuse me. Again, I will direct that question to the Director of Operations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, yes, like I had stated, the piece of equipment was purchased in 2011, and they are no longer making parts for this piece of equipment, so it has come to end of life.
Councilor Norberry?
Thank you, Mayor. I think I understand what you're getting at. How many times has the machine been out of order, say, the last few years?
Sorry, Ms. Scott?
Again, that is a question that I will direct to the Director of Operations.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, I'm sorry I do not have that answer at this point.
Hold up, good. Okay, any issues from council? We don't need motions for it to stay in, just if it comes out, Ms. Scott?
Sure, if that's the way council prefers, then we can just have motions to remove. We can do it that way.
Okay, I just saying it may be easier. Ms. Scott, can we just get an overview of the weight room dumbbells and then obviously the athletic machine, just in case there's any questions, just because they're.
Yes, so again, I'll ask the Director of Operations if he can provide council with the information about why we're proposing to replace these dumbbells.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council. So the dumbbells are as simple as a piece of equipment as it is. They're evolving. Things are different. There's newer models that are safer, less maintenance goes into them, like tightening up the dumbbells on a regular maintenance. In looking into this project right here, it was noted that the dumbbells were purchased in 1986 along with the dumbbell rack. The request this year, we were able to purchase dumbbells last year to replace some of the older, smaller weights. The request this year is to replace the remaining set that we have for the weight room. So,
Okay, thank you. Any questions, concerns from council? Okay. So I know I'm probably moving forward from the team that's on Zoom, but it might be just quicker. Elliptical machine, any issues from council? Okay. Museum automated door? Zamboni room exterior bay door? Councillor Noxana?
Thank you. We had done something with the Zamboni Bay in the last few years. I'm wondering, did that not include the door, or is there a problem with the door that was put in?
Yeah, I'll go to Ms. Scott in a minute. I know we did the melt pit. We did a cement work on the outside of the Zamboni door, but the Zamboni, like the main door has not been, but Ms. Scott?
Yeah, that's correct. The door is not something that we have done within the last few years. I will ask the Director of Operations if he can provide council with a little bit more background about why this is needing to be done at this time.
Thank you.
thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. Yeah, just due to equipment fatigue, it's time to upgrade the mechanism for the door.
Any other concerns or questions or comments from council? Okay, Aquatic Center desk resurface. Councillor Julik?
When I read that we're at a high risk of slips and falls, I'm wondering why we're putting it off to 2027 and not looking at doing it this year.
Ms. Scott?
I believe it probably has a lot to do with capacity. When you see the amount of projects that community services has to complete this year, that it was a consideration of what we can reasonably complete this year and what we could reasonably complete next year. But I will ask the Director of Operations if he has any additional information he can provide council on why we've recommended 2027 as the year for this project.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. Yes, it's also due to the fact that we're doing the dehumidifier this year, so we're at capacity.
So I guess my question would be, would we need to have it in for the 2027 under capital projects?
Yes, so that's why it's included here for council to approve, for it to be in the 2027 budget. Council leaving this in the budget and approving it now allows us to do that preparatory work so we can proceed with that in 2027.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions, concerns, comments from council? Okay, boiler room equipment installation. Any questions, comments from council? Councillor Hoffman.
Yeah, my question is, what is that?
Ms. Scott?
Apologize. I believe this came as a recommendation following the boiler failure in 2025 when we had engineers come out and assess the system. This is a recommendation that came forward from that in order to deal with some of the excess heat that's created in that room. But I will ask the Director of Operations if he has additional information he can provide council.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. I do not have any additional information. This was a recommendation by insurance to keep the heat out of the building.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay. Community Center AC connections to backup generator. Any concerns or issues? Okay. Just so council's aware, that's our heating and cooling center if needed. Fire hall boiler replacement. Concerns, questions? Councillor Hoffman?
I guess if we're talking about replacing the fire hall in the next few years, I'm wondering if we can just keep the existing boiler going a little longer, or is that just not viable anymore?
Ms. Scott?
Even if we were to proceed with building a fire hall and that was approved, I mean, we would still at least be a couple of years out before it was built and finalized. The inspection on the boiler does show that it is beyond its lifespan, and the probability of failure is high. And there still would be some use for that building even when the new fire hall is built. And so it does make sense to replace that boiler.
Questions, concerns, follow-up? Okay. I guess my question would be, Ms. Scott, have we also looked into whether we need to also install the boiler room insulation on this boiler as it's been recommended in the community center?
I am unaware if that was a recommendation that came forward from the inspections. I will ask the Director of Operations again, who is the Acting Director of Community Services, who would oversee facilities, if that is something that has been recommended or come forward in the consideration of replacing this boiler.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. I currently do not have that information for you. I can get that information for you, but I would assure that if we are installing a new boiler in the fire hall, it would be done correctly.
Okay. If we can get that information, Ms. Scott, in case the budget changes on that install? Just, I mean, if there's, and maybe it's because it's different areas, but where their boilers are represented, might not need it at the fire hall, but just if it's recommended in one spot, it just concerns me that maybe it needs to be, maybe it was just missed. I don't want to do the boiler this year and then installation next year. Might as well just do it all at once, and then it's up to what standards the district wants it to be.
We can investigate that.
Okay, thank you. Jet ice reverse osmosis water production unit. Tongue twister. Any issues, comments, questions? Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep up with my notes here at the same time. Front desk rentals, just so everybody's aware, it does say 2027. Councillor Julik.
And that was, again, my question, with it being 2027, particularly since the reasoning in here talks about accessibility. So is it capacity again? I can understand that. My concern is we've been trying to stay up on top of the accessibility things. And so I would like to see it done sooner rather than later, but if we're at capacity, we're at capacity.
Yeah, I'll go to Ms. Scott in a second. I mean, some of it will be that we have not approved plans for the renovation of the community center front desk. It has, pardon me, we have seen a proposal in regards to some renovations with the front desk, including staged approach for other parts of the upstairs of the community center. Pardon me, but nothing's been directed by council. Ms. Scott?
Yes, so that's why we're recommending for 2027. Council has seen that initial proposal. Council has had follow-up questions. We do need to bring more information back to council before we can even finalize what that's going to look like. And so that's why we have recommended that for 2027.
And I would think, and keep Ms. Scott on the line though, but I would think like if we leave it in, as staff brings it forward, once it's approved, like the design concept, staff will start with this in I wouldn't say like right in the new year, but start the process so it can actually be completed in a timely fashion. I'm assuming that's correct?
Correct. By leaving it in there, it allows us to continue to plan and prepare and bring those options back to council for approval so that we can move ahead with that project in 27.
Thank you. Pool chemical feed controllers. Questions, concerns? Okay. I don't know what all that is, but the Tots and Whirlpool pool basin tiles repair existing concrete. Sorry?
Replace and repair.
Oh, thank you, buddy. Replace and repair the Tots and Whirlpool basin tiles, repair existing concrete. I guess my question just would be, did we not do some tiles in the last shutdown? Ms. Scott? So 2025.
I don't have that information. I will ask the Director of Operations if he has that information for council.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. That was half of the main pool and patchwork done on the last shutdown.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions or other concerns from council? Willow Hall flooring? Questions, comments, concerns? Okay, Town Hall building renovations, 2026 and 2027? So I imagine the front part of the copy, there's a list of what's in 2026 and what's is in 2027. Ms. Scott?
2026 will be outside building improvements and renovations. 2027 is intended to be inside building improvements and renovations. This is a really high-level estimate. Based on what was recommended, the 3 million is based on what was recommended in the 2019 report. At that time, I believe the cost was 1.7. So just considering cost increase and escalation since 2019, plus building in some contingency. So the 3 million is a really high level and then, I mean, if council approved that, then that would be still figuring out exactly. You know, we do have quotes for windows and doors. We do have a quote for the clock, but there are other things that would be included in that overall project. And then the 2 million for 2027 would be addressing a lot of those things that came forward in the accessibility audit as well, and some of the other issues that we have noted for interior needs. Some is soundproofing certain offices and things like that.
Thank you. Councillor Bertrand?
Thank you, Mayor. I just see under the funding source, $3 million debt. Are we planning to take out a loan for this?
Ms. Scott?
Sorry, I will ask FIT if they can provide any information about how that particular funding source was identified for this project.
Yeah, through your worship, the proposed funding source is $3 million debt. That's part of it. The financial implications of that is increased taxes to pay for the servicing of that. You will see on the tax increase chart, that's one of the line items. It shows the debt servicing costs as well. So that's built into the forecasted tax increases beyond 2026.
Follow up?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of using debt to fund this. I think we have grown our reserve fund to be a general reserve, and we just talked about asset management and how we need to use some of our reserves for some of our assets, and I couldn't think of a better way to use it than for this building. So definitely not in favor of using debt.
Be a motion. If you need a few minutes, we can come back to it. I can come back. Okay. I was just trying to get to the end. If you're going to write Councillor Norbury, we'll just take Councillor Bertrand, we'll just take a 5-minute recess anyways.
move to use surplus as funding source to fund the town hall building renovations.
You mean instead of the 3 million debt?
Correct.
Still use the gas?
Gas tax is definitely an option, but
No, I'm just saying for the second part of the 2 mil. It's already on the sheet.
yeah, no, I'm just trying to, yeah, so 3 million for surplus, 2 million for gas tax.
Okay, seconder on the motion. Councillor Julick, discussion? Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Bertrand, for bringing this forward. I think it's a great idea. I don't think we should have long-term tax implications on debt if we have the money in the bank, right? We can, just makes sense in my mind. So thanks for bringing this forward. I'm in support.
Councillor Hoffman?
Thank you, Mayor. Before I vote on it, I'd like to hear from probably Fit on why the decision was for 3 million debt over surplus, just to have an understanding of what the considerations were.
Ms. Scott?
I will ask the FIT team if they can provide any additional information. They kind of sort of identified previously about why they went with or recommended debt, but I will ask the FIT team if they can provide any additional information why we were recommending debt over using the surplus or reserves.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's certainly nothing wrong with using reserves, so that's a great idea if council wishes to do that, and it's within your discretion. The idea behind using debt is because these renovations would upgrade what City Hall is currently providing. So in that sense, you could consider it funding a new service. So debt kind of forces the district to incur new costs and fund the cost of the new service rather than relying on the accumulation of surplus funds from before. Again, it's more of a principle thing. It's not necessary. Now, keep in mind as well, if you use your surplus, there are investment revenues you won't earn on it. So those will be less than what you will have to pay in debt. So it will save you some money in that respect, which is why it's a good idea.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Hoffman?
No, thank you for that. I'm fully in support of this motion. I think we're a little averse to debt around here as at the best of times, and with the surplus being a one-off, I have no problem spending it on something like this. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we're trying to look into the future. Can you, Ms. Scott, maybe give us an idea of what we would make off investment compared to the debt percent?
I don't have that information. I will ask the Director of Finance if he has any. I know he's been dealing with those investments, and he said there was some that just came due, and he's been looking at the investment portfolio going forward. So that's something I'll ask the Director of Finance if he can provide council with any kind of estimate on what we would potentially have earned as investment revenue on that $3 million.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. So in our invested funds, we're looking at interest rates of around between 3 and 5% from what we were able to get investments into in the last few years. So I'm not actually 100% on what MFA debt is currently going for. I'm not sure if I can pass that back to the FIT team to see if you guys have any indication on what MFA rates are at this current moment.
Generally, the Municipal Finance Authority finances its debt by issuing 10-year bonds, which are currently yielding around 4.1%. So similar to what you're earning in your investment revenue. So in that sense, it's kind of a trade-off. But you do have the opportunity to earn more interest revenues depending on your cash flows. So yeah, to answer your question, the first 10 years of the amortization would be expected to be around 4.1% if you took on debt, right?
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Motion carries. Any other questions or comments? Okay, community center heating system. Questions, comments? Ms. Scott, can we just get an overview of what that is since we just replaced boilers?
Yes, so these are recommendations that came forward from the engineer firm that did come in and do the assessment following those boiler failures. They had identified or recommended that some of the things that could potentially protect or increase the lifespan of the new boilers we put in were replacing the expansion tank with a properly sized tank, repiping some of the boiler room, relocating the air separator to an optimal position within the system, replacing some of the pressure relief valves, replacing the direct makeup water connection with the glycol fill tank, and providing some separate loop pumps and installing gauges across the heat pool exchangers. So these are some of the things that the engineers had identified as could assist with prolonging the life of our new boilers.
So did we not have these boilers evaluated before they were replaced? Since we replaced them, I believe it's 3 times now. Did we not have this evaluation done previously and with this information that maybe could have prevented some of the previous malfunctions of our boilers?
No, so in between the boiler replacement in 2024 and then them again ultimately failing in 2025, we had identified that this inspection needed to be done in '24, but due to timing with the engineer themselves, they could not get here until '25 to complete the assessment.
Okay, thank you. Any concerns, questions from council? Okay. Valve replacement, I'm going to go with that one. Councillor Noxana.
Thank you. I'm under the assumption this is also at the community center.
Ms. Scott.
Correct.
Follow-up?
Follow up.
It says 20,000 in 3 separate years. I'm assuming that's 3 separate valves. And then I'm just wondering, are these all at a critical stage and should we be looking at them all sooner, or is it fair to spread them out over those 3 years?
Ms. Scott.
This is for us to be able to build up an inventory of them so that we have them in stock. The report does say they're all past their life expectancy. We're going to keep using them as long as we can, but the intention is to build up the inventory so we have them on hand to replace them as soon as possible once they do fail.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, golf course rehabilitation. Questions, concerns, comments? Councilor Bertrand?
Thank you, Mayor. Within the golf course rehabilitation, there was a section on leveling and recovering the tee boxes. And I believe the plan was to seed them. And I'm just wondering if a cost analysis was done to sod them to limit the disruption of play throughout the year.
Ms. Scott?
I don't believe so, but I will direct that question to the Director of Operations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. When we did present this report, that was a topic of conversation. We tried to get a survey done, and there was also snowfall on the ground at that time. So we were unable to do that and get you the information.
Okay, follow up.
Yeah, I'm just, like, some of the tee boxes certainly could be reused, the sod that's on them right now. I'm just concerned that if we go with the seeding route, we're gonna have to be looking at alternate areas to use while the tee box is out of commission. So I'm sure sodding it would increase the cost, but I'm just wondering if sod is an option, is the cost going to increase according to this budget amount?
Ms. Scott?
That is a question, again, I will defer to the Director of Operations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, currently at this point in time, I do not have those answers. I mean, as we are coming into spring, sod suppliers will be won't be around again, so I can make those phone calls.
Follow up? Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering if artificial grass was a consideration for the tee boxes.
Ms. Scott?
I don't believe so, but again, I'll defer that question to the Director of Operations.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. I do not believe that would be viable.
Okay.
Thank you. I would think, just as it's been fleshed out here, if we think that, I mean, I would think we probably will not have a cost. I mean, I could be wrong. Ms. Scott can answer that in time for final budget to either increase this. If there's a thought that council wants to look at sod over seeding, I would increase it at a whatever percent. And if it's over that, then staff would have to come back for unbudgeted funds. But I don't believe in, unless Ms. Scott, you can confirm that we would be able to have that priced in regards to sod to give council a better idea before it's approved.
I would think it would be highly unlikely we would have those numbers before council wanted to approve this budget, but again, that's a question I'll ask the Director of Operations.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. I would also have to say that it might be difficult to get those numbers for you in time.
Thank you. Okay, and any other questions, concerns, comments? Okay. Museum duct cleaning, any concerns, questions, comments? Councillor Noxana.
Thank you. When was the last time the ducts were cleaned at the museum,
Sorry.
if known?
Ms. Scott?
I believe it's been a while, and that's why we're bringing this forward, but again, that's a question I'll ask the Director of Operations.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. I would like to defer this to our facilities manager.
Mr. Bradley, good evening, Mayor, Council. I believe in my time working with the district, I don't believe, since the museum has taken over that facility, they've ever been done.
Follow up, Councillor Noxana.
Yes. Is this a regular scheduled thing we should be doing to extend the life of our heat system and also the cleanliness of the air in the building?
Ms. Scott?
Yes, it is likely something that we should build. It's not something that would need to be done every year, but it is something that should be built into probably all of our building maintenance periodically to make sure the ducts are being cleaned.
Follow up.
Yes. Is that something that is being worked on then, a policy maybe, or procedures on cleaning these ducts?
Ms. Scott?
Yes, when I say that in terms of we don't have a written policy at this time, but it is something that we are absolutely working on in terms of future planning.
Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just from my perspective, duct cleaning unless necessary from some sort of renovation, drywall particulate or something. If we're changing filters and we're not seeing that there's something going wrong with, that they're being filled up way faster than they should be, duct cleaning is not something I look at unless there's a problem with the ducts. Even if you have a centimeter thick of just calcified layer on it, the vast majority of your airflow is still going to be there. So unless we have a problem, it's not something I would want to spend $44,000 on.
Okay.
So I would actually like to make a motion to remove the museum duct cleaning.
Okay, seconder on the motion. Councillor Julick, discussion. I'm going to make a couple comments. I'm not an expert. Just make a comment. I mean, maybe staff would be able to comment after mine. My understanding, you should have routine cleaning, and my concern would be, are we doing all heat vents routinely within the district-owned buildings? Ms. Scott.
The issue particularly with the museum is that they do, and I can't think of the word right now, but where they're working with the fossils and the cleaning of them that does have particulates, and they do have a certain air quality that they do need to maintain, and I believe we have cited potential health issues with some of what could be in the air because of the work that they're doing. But that is a question, again, I will ask the Director of Operations if he has any additional information on.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. I do not have any further information on that. I would say that personal opinion would be that silica dust in the air from crushed rock could be a hazard, so.
Thank you. Councillor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to speak not in favor of this motion. I do believe the museum definitely needs a thorough cleaning, including the ducts. I was on the board there for a couple years and I've been involved over there for quite a while, and there has been a lot of work done with the plaster and uncovering some of the fossils. They did have prep techs there for a few years, drilling and working with the fossils to uncover them. At that time, they didn't have proper ventilation for their workstations, so there's certainly a lot of plaster dust in the air and on the floor, and I think it's certainly needed.
Okay, any other questions, discussion in regards to the motion on the floor to remove museum duct cleaning? Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I would hope that we're increasing the filtration, the MERV rating of their filters if this is an ongoing issue. I am more concerned about a ventilation matter than a duct cleaning matter, that if they're working in an area that isn't ventilated properly, they're immediately taking that layer off, and that is right there in the air. The duct cleaning, it wouldn't impact that, but I'm getting the feeling that there's might be some concerns with the facilities available for them with where they're working if they had ventilation issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other sorry, Councillor Julik.
Only because we're talking about it now, so I guess my thought is, if we go ahead with this, are we going to be looking at the lease agreement to make sure that we cover all of these different pieces of, like, so in their lease, that we're responsible for however many duct cleanings, what this looks like after the job is done. Like, I think that we need to go ahead and do it when I hear that we've never done it. But then making sure that within the lease agreement that we have something there. I'm just wondering, and we don't have to do it today, just.
Yeah, ask Ms. Scott,
plug in
but it's,
something here.
my understanding, it's our building, so we have to do the maintenance on it, but I could be wrong. Ms. Scott.
It is our building that we would be required to do the maintenance on. If we want to specify how often that maintenance happens in the next lease renewal, we could look at that.
Follow up, Councillor Julik.
Yeah, and I guess I wasn't clear enough. My thought is okay, so if we're concerned because they're doing plaster work in there or fossil work in there, is there something that we want to, as a district, make sure that there's proper ventilation if there's something that we need to be looking at that way? Like, I don't think it's tonight, it's just one of those things as we look at lease renewals and stuff like that, if that's something that's gonna be ongoing, because $44,000 is a big chunk of change. And if we had to do it more frequently because of the type of work they were doing, that maybe we can have a stopgap in between is all. Thanks.
Thanks. Councillor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, they're not currently working on uncovering fossils. That's been done in the past years ago when they had a prep tech specifically for that. So as far as I understand, I'm not on the board currently, but I don't believe that there is any uncovering being done at the moment, but yeah, it's certainly the remnants of the previous work is still there.
Okay, Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. So I appreciate Councillor Hoffman's comments in regards to, I mean, I've no doubt this is probably a similar vein of what you do professionally, but I mean, at the end of the day, we've heard from staff, it's never been done before. I've done my ducts before. And I mean, my house is probably newer than the museum, and I've done it, and it's been done by the previous tenants. It's something that should be done regularly, and, you know, there's definitely been a lot of moving around in that building. And if these people at the museum are telling us that it needs to be done, I'd be inclined to believe them. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, going to call the question on the motion. The motion is to remove the duct cleaning from the community service budget. All in favor to remove? Opposed? Councillor Bertrand, Councillor Julik, Councillor Noxana, Councillor Norbury, and Mayor Calker opposed. The motion is defeated. Ms. Scott, just so I see that we have the community service or the museum duct cleaning on here. What about the rest of the buildings that are owned by the municipality? Willow Hall, Vic Center, the community center? When's the last time those buildings were completed?
I don't have that information. I will ask the Director of Operations if he has that information for council.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, I would like to direct this to the Facilities Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley, Mayor, Council. So I am currently working with the contractor to get a quote on the Willow Hall. The town hall has been done, the visitor center was done in 2025. The community center had been done, but several years ago. So we are working towards getting a schedule.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Okay, cupboard replacement? Questions, concerns, comments? Blinds replacement? Oh, sorry, my apologies. Counselor Knoxena.
Thank you. As we look at doing a greater upgrade in the community center, is there any possible way that these cupboards could be added into that replacement, or these cupboards be lined up to match that replacement, just so that it looks very seamless as we're upgrading? We don't want it to be all piecemeal.
Ms. Scott?
Yeah, these particular meeting rooms weren't intended, or the interior of these meeting rooms weren't part of that renovation. That is something that we can take into consideration when we replace the cupboards.
Good follow-up. Okay. Any other questions, comments by council? Okay. Blinds replacement? Concerns, questions, or comments by council? Okay. Moving on to economic development. Land sale policy update. Questions, concerns, or comments? Okay. Labor market research plan. Rymore subdivision. Councillor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to go back to the labor market research plan, I'm just curious, what's the end goal for this plan?
Ms. Scott.
I will ask our Director of Economic and Community Development to give council a greater detail or outline of what this is intended for.
It's not lighting up here either. Okay, let's take a 5-minute recess. Ms. Scott?
So before we took recess, I had just asked the Director of Economic and Community Development if she could provide council with some additional information about the capital funding request for the labor market research.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as you know, we have been working on the Tumbler Ridge Economic Development Resiliency Plan. So this is going to be an addition to that. The timing worked out well that this was an opportunity through NDIT. So we're experiencing some renewed economic activity, but lack current community-specific labor market data to understand workforce capacity, skills gaps, and future demand. This creates a risk of being underprepared for growth and limits the ability to plan effectively. So this project will provide clear data to support informed decision-making. It'll provide reliable data to support council and administrative decision-making, identify workforce gaps and future needs, support economic diversification and investment attraction, and inform housing and infrastructure planning, and then position the district for future opportunities.
Follow-up? When this plan's completed, Ms. Scott, since it's come forward, is it going to require a staff position?
I don't believe so, but that is a question I will refer to the Director of Economic and Community Development.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, no, this will not require a staff position.
Thank you. Any other discussions in regards to the labor market research plan? Okay, the Rymore subdivision. Any questions, concerns, comments? Councillor Julik?
I'm just looking, there's a fairly specific amount there, so I'm just wondering, has that already been RFP'd? Like 92,430, it just seems pretty specific, so wondering if this is a consultant fee, and we've already looked into it.
Ms. Scott?
I recommend, due to the complexity of this that, and legal components, that any further discussion should be enclosed.
Okay, I put a motion on the floor to immediately go to a closed. Seconder? Councillor Hoffman, discussion? Yep.
I believe before we go to close, we need to cite the community.
Yep, I'm just going to ask staff for
Okay,
it. Just going to get this motion passed, and then we'll have staff provide that. Okay. Any discussion in regards to going to immediate closed? Call the question, all in favor? Ms. Scott, can we please have staff provide us the reasoning we're going into closed? No, I was going to ask the same question.
It's legal.
It's legal on land. I just don't know that. No, that's why. No, I planned on it. I was on it.
Or legal opinion. Yeah, it would be Community Charter Section 91G.
91G?
91G.
Okay. Do you need much time for us to go from here into closed?
Is the recording device is disconnected and we are enclosed.
We're going to closed, yep. Not that we had an agenda to approve. Councilor Nomari.
Thank you, Mayor.
Budget meeting? Okay. Kate Ridemore subdivision, any questions, comments, or concerns? Going to general government, records management, future preparedness, 2027. Concerns, questions? Am I in the right one? Okay, I just seen Councilor Nomari flipping pages. I want to make sure I was in the right spot. Councilor Bertrand?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick overview would be appreciated. What are we looking at here? New software?
Ms. Scott?
I don't know if my pages are in the right order. Which one are you on?
Sorry?
It's a few ahead in our appendix. It's page 29.
Oh, sorry.
It's a few farther ahead.
Yeah, I know, I'm trying to flip back and forth. It's tough.
So I split my agenda.
Yeah, I should have. Can't even keep control. Can't even keep control.
Okay, so the records management, it does not have to do with software. It is more in regards to protection of documents that we do have to keep forever, as legislated. But this is a project of the corporate department, so I will ask our Director of Corporate Services if she would like to provide council with a summary of what this project is for.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Thank you, Mayor, Council. So currently our records are critical, vital, permanent records are kept in the basement in a place that is not protected for fire, flood, security. We do have some provincial directions that we need to follow in case of a disaster. We need to protect our records. So this approach would be a phased project in which we would first do a pre-assessment to see what is the best solution for the physical records, especially those that are vital and permanent. So we can have a few different solutions for the physical records, and then moving forward, the third phase would be moving to a digital records management. Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Julik.
So my question is, again, we've put this off to 2027, and I can appreciate if it's a capacity thing. My other question would be, we're going to get into compliance with the 2025 Emergency Prepared Directive. Are we going to be, like, is there a deadline with that ministry's preparedness standards or whatever?
Ms. Scott?
Again, that is information I'll ask the Director of Corporate Services to provide.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. There is no deadline. It's more to think about what each municipality needs to do to keep our records secure.
Follow up. Ms. Scott, if I may just ask, I see the funding is under the Peace River Regional District agreement, sorry. If this is coming from government, I'm assuming a ministry would be EMCR. Why is it not being funded through them if they're mandating us to do something?
We're looking at potential grant funding options in addition.
So with this $300,000, it's to look at it or actually have a process? I just want a clarification that we're budgeting an amount. Is that to set up a system that protects this, or to actually gather the information to figure out what we need?
I believe that the 300,000 is to actually complete the work, but again, that's a question I'll ask the Director of Corporate Services.
Yes, an exact figure will be found after an assessment, but the intention is to complete the entire project with $300,000.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Okay. Special projects that are general government, it's the Hope Truck. So that is grant funding from the Hope Truck of 2025. Ms. Scott, do we have a budget set to assist with that? So like my understanding, I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't read through the whole report, but council has picked 2 initiatives. One of that was Indigenous language on signage. I mean, I would say some signage at that point, and with more maybe to come after the next Hope Truck. But also a video led by our youth in regards to interviewing elders and youth of the Indigenous communities close to us. Do we have funding to also make this happen?
When council approved these projects, it was with the understanding that the projects could be scaled depending on the amount of funding that we received. So we have not included any funding from the district. The projects are intended to be scaled based on the amount of actual grant funding we received.
Okay. Let's gotta think about that one for a minute. So my question is, I guess, on staff, we have staff that will be able to implement the projects selected by council, or do we need assistance?
Our intention is to partner with other organizations to help these projects be completed. And so the partnering with those other organizations is kind of built into, if there's a cost with those partnering, it's built into the total cost of the project.
Okay. Thank you. Quest upgrade and training. Any issues, concerns, or comments? Okay, medical offices. Questions, comments? Councillor Julik.
I appreciate that it's in the budget, and I'm, like, as it's coming at a surplus, it's probably just the checkbox. I'm wondering where we're at with the information why we put the 2 million in was to get the information to make that, you know what I'm talking about, so I'll shut up.
No, no, I'm just shaking my head. I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, so this was a marker, I guess I shouldn't call it that. This was a budgeted amount that was initiated by council in case we need to go down the road of looking to hire our own doctors or such. And I think there will be more information coming about that. I know we've given direction to staff to reach out to Colwood, Sycamoose, and other things as they work through that process. We put this in the budget to have it available as we go through that process. So I know staff is working on it. I mean, staff can speak to it. They're working on it. Again, I don't think we realize that we give staff direction, and I know they're doing it, but then we had a tragedy on February 10th that sets some of that information back. So I don't know where they're at, but that's why it was added. So as we process through the 2026 year, that we have funds set to the side, that we're not looking to come back and find unbudgeted funds to be able to either move forward or come up with an idea. But Ms. Scott, would staff have anything else to add?
I can only add that I have not had a lot of time to put towards bringing these reports forward to council. I am aware that I think the original motion from council came early in 25. The PRD was working on a report as well at that time, and I believe that report has come back to the PRD board. But I am not at this point, I wouldn't even be comfortable guessing a timeline for when I would be able to bring that forward to council.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments? Any concerns? I just want to go back to the Hope Truck. I just marked it to go back after these things. So I guess my concern is council has picked two initiatives that we spoke very highly at, not only at the celebration, but it's definitely been part of the process with the Hope Truck that I sit on the committee there, and it's been a process. And eventually we need to come and move this project forward. What concerns me from council side, what concerns me here is that we may, to me, we should not be using part of the Hope Truck money to fund organizational help or a contractor's assistance. I don't believe those are why the funds and why we were invited into the Hope Truck. I wouldn't know what a contractor help or would cost in regards to videoing. I mean, when we talk about the youth going for our community in regards to doing a youth engagement video with Indigenous communities, there's videoing, there's, I don't know, I'm not putting it all together and cutting it and whatever that is. I don't believe we should be using the funds that was raised by the Hope Truck in regards to, reconciliation, Indigenous involvement with youth and children of our community. I wouldn't know what to set to a budget of this, but may I ask staff that if we had to hire a contractor to assist in regards to even just the videoing part of it, could we, and I know and maybe we can just ask staff to look into it for the next meeting, because I don't feel comfortable using the money that was raised from the Hope Truck to help pay for other organizations within the community to assist us, but also bring a contractor in if we need the assistance for videoing, or again, with the Indigenous language on signage in regards to what Indigenous languages we use. Hoping I didn't put too much out in front of you, Ms. Scott. Like with staff,
I'm just trying to figure out what the question.
So like, to me, I don't know, I guess it's up to council. Do we think that these funds should be used in regards to other agencies that locally would maybe need some funds to assist us, or hiring a contractor to assist in regards to the video? I don't believe so, but what does council think? Councillor Julie?
I think that if we used an Indigenous company, that I would be comfortable with that, possibly. But I also understand where you're coming from. Should that be something that we kick in? Is that where you're going? Like, should we be paying for anything over and above that? Yeah, I'm not sure. I hear what you're saying, but I don't have an answer for you.
Yeah, like, and that's exactly what I'm saying. I think we are part from the four communities, splitting the amount raised by the Hope Truck is, that should be spent on those two things, not in regards to if we had to hire a contractor or other groups. Councillor Noxana and then Councillor Norbury.
Thank you. I am not opposed to us kicking in some money to make this a better project, but I'm a bit confused what else we would use the money for. We want some youth to develop videos, but developing the video is part of the cost. So whether that's training youth to do the editing and the videoing, or having a contractor or a local organization come and work with the youth, that's all the same project. There'll be some costs no matter what we look at it, and it's all going to be part of this initiative. And the same when you're looking at the signs, we'll need some help identifying what languages to put on the signs, having them translated, having them edited, but that's the cost of the project. That's what the money is there for. I love the idea of finding some First Nations companies to partner with. That would be amazing. But without an actual amount, it's really hard to kick in a budgeted, like a taxation or a surplus budgeted amount to partner with this initiative.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury and then Councillor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, ultimately, we need to put some money towards getting the project done, and I can appreciate the thoughts about how we should be dividing it up. Do we bring in a contractor? Do we provide it to here and there? I suspect we're going to have to reach out to different sources because we have different specialities that we need to have for both of these projects. For Indigenous language, we might most likely have to be reaching out to our First Nations neighbors and ask them about assisting us, and I would hope that we'd compensate them for their time. I know, West Moberly has that exciting new Beaver language project. That'd be something exciting to have on our sign, so I can see us spending some money that way. Might not be a contractor, but it could be a consulting fee. In the video editing project, I think it'd be great for us to go to our youth and say, this is our plan. We have some money for you to, to work with a videographer and an editor if you need it. Because if you want to do anything, it costs money. So I can appreciate the comments of how it needs to be spent, but ultimately it needs to be spent on getting to the goal of these two projects. And however we spend it, we've got to have some money there. Thanks.
Thanks. Councilor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. I wasn't expecting council to have to put in any money into this project. I was expecting the money raised throughout the donation time would be spent accordingly. Like Ms. Scott said, it can all be scalable. All of our projects that we want to do can all be scalable depending on how much money is raised. In my opinion, I think the services needed to complete the project, whether it be a video project or whatever it might be, I think it's part of the cost of the project. So I would be in favor of using this $55,000 to produce either both projects that we approved or maybe just one if it's too costly. But I don't know what we would be spending the money on if it wouldn't be to produce the video that we're asking for. So I would definitely be in support. I like the idea of partnering with First Nations. Possibly there's a drone company out there, possibly, I don't know. But yeah, I would definitely be in favor of using this money in a scalable way. Like I don't see the need of us having to kick in more money. I think we can scale it.
Okay. That's the conversation I wanted to have. I just look at it that we should be spending the full amount right on the project, not for contractors or this background assistance we may need. And that's how I looked at it. To me, this whole truck is, obviously, we're going to be doing 2026 as well, and launch will be later this year. But I looked at that, maybe we needed to do that. But I can see council's direction. It's just, I'd like to see it spend the full amount so that we can get majority of what we're looking at to get done. That's the video, and as much trail signage as we can with the Indigenous. Okay, moving on to operations. Recycle building boiler replacement. Concerns, questions, or comments? Councilor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on the same topic of boilers, it's been a popular one this evening. Are we planning a assessment of our recycle building to improve the lifespan of our new boiler?
Ms. Scott.
This boiler is so last year we replaced the boiler in the newer recycling building. This is replacing the boiler in the older recycling building. It is older and nearing the end of its lifespan, which is why we're proposing to replace it now. It's one of those ones that when the contractor comes out and does the servicing, that he has recognized that it's near the end of its lifespan. This boiler, and we were able to get the additional information that council asked about the fire hall boiler as well, about whether it needs insulation. No, it does not. This one doesn't need the additional insulation. But I will ask the Director of Operations in these boiler replacements if there's other considerations that or upgrades we need to do to extend the lifespan of the boilers that we're replacing.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. This boiler, this boiler was actually slated for replacement in 2021. Found out along the way. We replaced the one in the newer recycling building last year because it was undersized. The boiler is sized properly for the facility that we're going to be replacing this year. It's just end of life.
Okay. Other questions, concerns, comments? We replaced one in the new recycle building last year because it was undersized. Could that one have not been moved over to the one that's at end of life? Because the other one was fairly new. Ms. Scott?
I believe that one completely failed, but I'll ask the Director of Operations to provide that information.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. The one in the newer recycling building, it absolutely failed.
Okay. And have we done a full assessment across the district in regards, obviously the fire department boilers come up, but that was something that was asked again last year in regards to doing a full assessment on all boilers across the corporation. Has that been completed? Ms. Scott?
I don't have the answer for that. I will defer that one to the Director of Operations.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. Yes, after our conversation here at Council, we did implement with our contractor that when they do come to town, they do an assessment on all of our boilers.
Yep. I guess, Ms. Scott, just, I mean, I haven't gone through all this here. I should almost look through it. There's no other boilers in regards to Public Works or Town Hall or wherever else that, you know, they've been assessed, they're good. We're not looking at, I mean, I know we can't plan the future, but just an overall view of these.
Aside from the ones that are included for council's consideration tonight, there are currently no other boilers that we're expecting to be replaced in the next 5 years.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, concerns, or comments? Okay, above ground PRVs, PRVS. And that's obviously from 2026 to 2030. Microservicing, 2026. Councillor Bertrand.
Yeah, just curious on where we're planning to put this product and what kind of life cycle does that increase our roads?
Ms. Scott.
We are proposing to do the microsurfacing on Mackenzie, Monkman, and Willow. I believe it's expected to extend the life of those roads by about 10 years, but I will ask the Director of Operations if he has additional information he'd like to provide.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. That is correct. We are looking to do some of our higher traffic roads. And we're doing Mackenzie, Monkman, and Willow. In higher traffic areas, this can extend the life of a road 6 to 8 years. Obviously, some of the roadways we have in town will never see that high of a traffic flow. In conversations with the city of Edmonton, they have upwards of 100,000 vehicles going across these areas in a day.
Okay, any other questions, comments, or concerns? And those 3 streets were up for paving in 2026? So instead, we're deciding to go with microservicing.
No, I don't believe they're identified for repaving. We want to do the microservicing so we can extend the life of them before they would have to be repaved again. But again, that's a question I will defer to the Director of Operations.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Yes, based off of our assessment, these roads were not to be repaved. We are just trying to, as those roads are our highest used roads, extending the life of those roadways.
Okay, just to follow up, if I may, Ms. Scott, what is the, without doing microservicing, when would these 3 roads come up for repavement?
So again, that's a question I don't have the answer to, but I will defer to the Director of Operations.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. These were not going to be coming up for replacement anytime soon. Our focus would be into the residential areas over the coming years. Again, this product was to put it somewhere where we have high use to minimize wear on those roadways.
Okay. Ms. Scott, can we get a year on replacement for Willow, Mackenzie, and Monkman within our asphalt replacement policy?
I can find that information for you.
Okay. Ms. Scott, do we have any warranty on microsurfacing?
That's a question I will defer to the Director of Operations.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. I can't speak to the warranty of the product at this time.
Yeah, appreciate that. Not to put you on the spot, Ms. Scott, do you know when we'd have approximately when we would have normally replaced Willow, Murray, and Monkman?
I do not. That, again, is a question I will defer to the Director of Operations.
Just within the plan is all I was looking for, just to, I mean, I'll be I'll be honest, I'm, like, it's just under $1 million. And I just don't have a whole bunch of information for when a resident asks me on why we're doing it. That's the only reason I'm asking these questions. It's not that I'm against the microservicing. I just want to make sure that's clear to council. That's not my concern. We're spending $1 million. If these roads aren't in our asphalt replacement for 15 or 20 years, that's why I'm asking. I just to be clear, it's not that to Ms. Scott, it's not something I disagree with. I just want to be able to have the information. So if a resident asks why we're doing this over that, I have an answer.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. It would take me some time to pull up the asphalt replacement policy.
Okay. Councillor Hoffman, then Councillor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not familiar with the product, so I'm maybe speaking out of turn, but I would imagine the longer you wait, the closer to the date of replacement, the less effective a product that is meant to increase durability would be effective. And we'll find out from there. But I am curious too, as well, as if it goes from 2035 to 2041 or whatever that you're looking for. Is that what is the sort of question that you're looking for?
Well, I guess what I'm asking, and I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't fully read the agenda. I received it, I think it was on, I'm not even sure, Monday afternoon. So I get a chance to go through all the background, and my apologies to staff that put the time into this, but not receiving a report. I didn't receive it until mid-afternoon due to away. So my thing is, if Willow, Mackenzie, or Monkman are in our paving asphalt replacement plan 15 years from now, is that the right streets to use it on? Does it give us 25 years? Or is there a better street that, again, it's just $100 million. Not that I'm against a new product to try. It's just about to explain to the taxpayers why we decided to go with it. Even though we're using Peace River Agreement, it's not taxation. Councillor Bertrand?
Thank you, Mayor. I definitely understand your questioning here, and, Monkman, Mackenzie, and Willow are definitely our highest traffic areas, probably our best roads as well, as far as the surface goes. From what I understand, this microsurfacing would be a top coat, basically a paint, very strong paint, but it would definitely increase the life of the top coat for that long. So I can definitely see this one being something that we could push into the future, just given the current condition of these three streets. It would be certainly a very easy one to drop $1 million this budget and relook at it again in 2027. So I am prepared to put forward a motion.
We maybe just wait till if staff gets it. Do you need some time to look for this, Ms. Scott? Sorry.
I have the asphalt replacement policy open. This was adopted by council in 2019. And so, I mean, because I was not here prior to 2025, so I don't know if any of these roads that were identified in this 2019 policy have been repaved or not. But looking at this, Mackenzie Way was set to be repaved in 2023. Monkman Way was set to be repaved in 2023, and Willow Drive was set to be repaved in 2007.
Okay, those weren't done. Okay. Any other questions, concerns, or comments? Okay, moving on. Councilor Bertrand?
I'd still like to put forward a motion if I could.
Yep, do whatever you like.
I'd like to move that we change the date or the year for capital project of microsurfacing from 2026 to 2027.
Seconder on the motion. We'll second it for debate. Okay, any debate? Councilor Bertrand?
Yeah, I just reiterate, I think Again, I think these are our, yes, they are our highest traffic roads, but I believe they're also our best roads currently. And I think we can revisit this next year.
Okay. Councillor Julik.
So as I read the report here, I feel like if those were the dates, like, so I've been in Tumbler Ridge now 15 years and I don't ever remember those roads being paved. And as we look at this and what I read here is that the longer we hold out, the less opportunity there is to do the microsurfacing. If we can get another 10 years out of this, like if the folks, like, I feel like the Director of Operations has looked at this, and so for me, I would rather do it sooner than later to extend the life. As Councillor Bertrand said, those are the best roads in the community. And the other question I would have, though, is, like, are we responsible for Monkman and Mackenzie? Like, when we talk about BC Hydro, okay, you're giving me a head nod, so that's good. Okay, I just wondered if it, because of the other, doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm not in favor of pushing it a year.
Yeah, so, sorry, I was shaking my head and I shouldn't do that. I should wait till you're finished. And I apologize. I should wait till your questions out. Again, just feel free to ask it. Yeah, so Monkman and Mackenzie are within the boundaries of the municipality. They're not the throughway highway, so the highways around the community are taken care of by highway. Ms. Scott, again, I apologize. I asked a lot of questions and I wasn't looking to remove it. I guess my concern is if we obviously had Monkman and Mackenzie in the asphalt replacement for, I'm sorry, I think you said 2022 and 2023. But they didn't seem to be pegged for the worst roads in the community to be repaved last year, 2025. Are there other roads within the municipality that are up for, close for paving that this product would work on to extend their lives? If Monkman, Mackenzie, and Willer are in, I mean, good shape, is there other roads? To me, and maybe if staff can give us an overview on why we're looking at microsurfacing. I don't know if we've had an explanation in regards to maybe what staff's learned about microsurfacing compared to paving, unless, I'm not sure if council's had an overview of that. It might just help understand it. I mean, sorry, I should turn your mic on.
Sure, and I'm reviewing this asphalt replacement policy, and I'm not sure I'm reading it correctly, because, like as Councillor Bertrand said, it doesn't make sense if this was a 2019 policy and they said it was supposed to be replaced into I'm obviously not reading this policy correctly, but I will ask the Director of Operations to provide that information that Council was looking for in regards to some information about microsurfacing, what it is, the purpose of it, all of that additional information he found out, and why the additional information that Council was looking for about these particular roads and why they were chosen and where it sits in the potential asphalt replacement future years.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. Yeah, after doing an assessment last year with 2 outside contractors that do microsurfacing, the conversation was had that what are your busiest roads? So we identified our busiest roads within the community. They said they were great candidates for the microsurfacing, so that is why we brought it forward as such. We scanned the entire community. Our roadways, they could all be good candidates. There are some rougher roads that may need some attention prior to microsurfacing. But this was a product that landed on our doorstep last year. It's very big in Alberta. You're starting to see it in major cities like Edmonton, Calgary, Red Deer, Ponoka. They've done a huge microsurfacing program. It breathes new life into your asphalt program without having to do a replacement right away. It hardens, much like asphalt. It cures within hours, and it goes on about an inch or a half an inch thick. there's three types of microsurfacing that can be done, type 1, type 2, type 3. Recommended for our community is type 2. So, yeah, it seemed like a really great product that was brought to our doorstep. They haven't broken into northern BC. I thought it was a great product to potentially try in our community. And if it extends our life of our asphalt, 6 to 8 years, but potentially more because we don't have the traffic flow. I thought it was a great opportunity to bring it forward to our community to save money down the road.
Thanks. Appreciate the overview. I got one last question before Councilor Norbury. Ms. Scott, can we just get, and I know it's probably going to be a tough one, but if we were to repave Willow, Monkman, and Mackenzie, do we have an approximate what that'd be worth compared to microservicing?
Have that information available. I will ask the Director of Operations if he does.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. To put it in comparison, the costs associated with paving in a community, it was brought to my attention that it cost about $1 million a city block. So the paving that we did last year, the prices came in at $1.5 million to do Secunga. So Monkman and Mackenzie are quite a bit larger and longer. So, I mean, the costs go up substantially.
Thank you. Councilor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate Councilor Bertrand, throwing it out there so we can just get a little more information. It's something new we haven't seen. Maybe we should get more information about it, but it sounds to me like our Director of Operations just wants to try something new in our community, and asphalt's only meant to last so long. And this seems like a very cost-effective way of doing that. I'm willing to give it a try to see how it is. If it's a fraction of the cost of mill and overlay, it'd be even better. So let's give it a try. Thanks.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have an issue trying it. It's certainly a good product. It's certainly going to do its job. The problem I have is doing it this year. Our roads are structurally sound. Roads deteriorate either in the base or in the top. The top, there isn't potholes, there isn't major cracks, and the base, there isn't major mounds and frost heaves. So as far as these three roads go, they're going to last a long time before we need to replace the top. And I don't suspect we would need to replace the bottom because they've lasted so long. So it's not about not trying this product. I think it's certainly going to extend the life of some of our roads. I just don't think we need to do it this year, and it drops $1 million, so, yeah.
Thank you. Any other discussion or comments? I'll make one. I appreciate the motion put on the floor by Councilor Bertrand. At this time, I won't support it, and I think Councilor already kind of mentioned, but I think this is an opportunity. Councilor Bertrand just mentioned that we don't have cracking, we don't have potholes yet, but this may prevent that. And I asked a lot of questions because, of course, be honest, I don't know a lot about microservicing, and guess I should have asked for it before I asked all these questions and get an overview, and maybe it would have had less questions for myself, which made council think different ways. But again, I think this is a way of protecting the road surfaces that are in a bit of higher standard that doesn't need to be fully ripped out and replaced or milled and overlaid. So I can't support the motion to remove it. Any other discussion? Okay, can I call the question in regards to removing microservicing until 2027? All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Jewett, Councillor Hoffman, Councillor Noxana, Councillor Norbury, and Mayor Kauka are opposed. Motion is defeated. Any other questions, concerns? Okay, paving renewal for 2028 and 2030. Any questions, concerns, or comments? Councillor Noxana.
Thank you. I'm just wondering what area of town this is.
Ms. Scott.
Sorry, I thought it did say in the report, but I don't see where it says in the report. I believe it's Handbrook and Quality, but I will ask the Director of Operations to
That's in 2029.
provide that information.
Oops.
Sorry. Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. So for the, where are we? Paving renewal 2028 to 2030. That was going to be still in the upper bench. It was going to be Red Willow and Babcock, and that'll take care of that whole end.
Any other discussion or comments? Yes, Ms. Scott, my comment would be, why would we not make these decisions in 2027?
Approving this budget now allows us to do the prep work and preparation and planning that goes into preparing the RFPs and putting all of that information together to proceed with getting these done.
So we need 2 years ahead of the schedule? Because if we approve it in 2027, this is talking 2028. That's the only reason I ask. And I get it, it's Peace River agreement funding, but again, what happens next year when something else comes up and we need this cash?
These can still be removed in future years if there are other things that do come up. This just allows us to prepare for the planning.
So in regards to Peace River agreement funding, that's not from this year's Peace River agreement funding?
I believe that would come out of the 2028 and 2030 Peace River agreement funding, but I will ask the FIT team to confirm.
Mayor and Council, the Peace River Agreement Reserve would be accumulating all funds that were contributed through the course of the financial plan, plus what's there, which is about $2.2 million per year. So it's not coming out of a particular year's contribution per se, but that's about the amount that gets contributed on an annual basis.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments from council? Okay, moving on to Bear Walks and Pathways 2027. Comments, questions, or concerns? I'm going to raise one. Sorry, I'm going to beat you, Councillor Julik. I have a concern with that. How do we add a bear walk? We have one that's been brought forward many times in regards to the one behind Town Hall that it doesn't even look like it exists anymore, Ms. Scott. So how would we add that if we're not talking about doing bear walks or pathways until 2027?
I will ask the Director of Operations if he can provide council with information on his plan on how to address that one particular bear walk.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. We still have paving projects going on this summer. It is a conversation that we can have with the contractor that's locally in town, if we can repair that section of Bear Walk.
Do we need funds for that, Ms. Scott?
Yes. However, I don't have an estimate, and I don't know. I'll ask the Director of Operations if he would be able to have any estimate. I doubt it, but I'll ask the Director of Operations if he has an estimate he can provide for that particular section of Bear Walk.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. At this point in time, I do not have an estimate. Contractors are set to come out here at the end of the month. Yeah, I couldn't even give you a total.
Thank you. Councillor Julik.
My question was also about something that was existing, and that was the stretch that wasn't continued to be paved back when we did all of the paving back in the day, over by across from the elementary school, that part. So I'm hoping that includes that chunk. I understand that this isn't for new things or whatever. So I feel like the 1.5 will be able to get things started this year, for the RFP and stuff, and I'm just hoping that it does come back to council to make sure that council is aware of what pieces are going to be resurfaced and if there's the opportunity to add other spaces in.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for bringing up that the Bear Walk behind us and its immediate need. I mean, even if we did a phased plan of pulverize, this year to at least make it flat. That's something I'd be, if we could get back to us at some point in time. I know that's what we've done previously, and in that we bring it up in one meeting, and a couple weeks later, it's back to us, that we can look at it. I appreciate that's a very challenging thing to do, but yeah, like we have seniors with mobility problems, and if you just go along that bear walk, it's unsafe. Definitely unsafe for anybody with mobility issues. So, I mean, if we can do something. Thanks.
Yeah. Ms. Scott, any comment? I'm sorry.
In regards to any additional information for the Bear Walks and the Bear Walk plan and the questions that council has raised, I will ask the Director of Operations if he has any additional information he would like to provide council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. This bear walk in behind Town Hall, last year, we actually did maintenance to the bear walk. We removed a section that was dilapidated, and we put materials back in there to make it better than what it was. And as far as the rest of the bear walks and pathways throughout the town, we ended up doing a survey. We have 7.1 kilometers of bear walks and pathways within the community.
Thank you. I'm going to put a motion forward that staff bring forward a report on the cost for the bear walk behind, and I apologize, Bobby, the bear walk for replacement in 2026 behind the town hall, as well as the paving from the elementary school to the golf course, or to the Speaker Road. We can get a cost. Seconder, Councillor Julick, discussion. I'll just make a comment. I think it's really important. I understand that staff is trying to stay within the funding and set work out, but the one behind the town hall has been brought forward for the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. It's not new. It's something that, I take the hit. It fell off my plate to keep bringing it forward, and then we forget about budgets gone by, resident brings it forward again, and then same with the one that Councillor Julick just mentioned. So I think it's important to staff, listening just to Ms. Scott's staff, that we have somebody coming in next month that hopefully we can get a cost and put it into a budget. So, any other discussion in regards to the motion? And Ms. Scott, just want to make sure you guys captured the motion.
I did.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. Any other discussion in regards to the bear walks and pathways for 2027? Okay. Public Works Office renewal for 2029. Okay. School field service, school field surface project 2026 and 2027. Oh, she lit up. Councilor Bertrand.
I don't think there's any need to include this in our 2026 budget. I prepared to make a motion to remove 2026 from this plan, but I'll let anybody else speak on it first.
Okay, thank you for that. Councilor Norbury and then Councilor Noxana.
Thank you, Mayor. I have the exact same opinion. With uncertainty of what's happening with our schools right now, I know there's plans, but it seems like maybe this is something that we should wait to see what's happening with the schools before we spend any money on repairs or maintenance like that. The future's uncertain. I'm not against doing it at some point in time, but I think we really need to wait and see what's happening out at both those locations. Thank you.
Councilor Noxana.
Thank you. I have the same opinion that we need more clarity on what's happening long-term with both school sites. I'm also concerned that when the aqua trailers move off the elementary school field, $80,000 is not going to be enough to fix the damage that's done there.
Ms. Scott, can we get some information in regards to the soccer field that's being used at the elementary for aqua trailers and what happens when those are removed?
We have been assured by the Ministry of Infrastructure that when those trailers are removed, that field will be put back in a condition that was better than what it was when they put the trailers there. However, when this was first brought forward as an idea for capital projects, that was before. Staff would fully support removing this from this budget.
Thank you. Councilor Bertrand.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that we Move the school field surface project to 2027 budget and remove it from the 2026 budget.
Seconder. Councillor Noxana, discussion. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering if staff's suggestion was to remove it completely or just push it back for a year.
Well, the motion is just to push it back to 2027.
And that's why I'm wondering if it should even be there, especially since it's school fields and we simply don't know if we have an answer for next year. That's why I'm asking if it was, as I heard, staff supporting its removal. Maybe I misheard. Maybe just pushing it back is what the suggestion is.
Yeah, I think Ms. Scott was just talking about in regards to the soccer field at the elementary school. Once the aquaculture is removed, government has assured staff that it will be put back in better condition than it was when they first put the aquacultures. Ms. Scott?
I will ask the Director of Operations if he would like to see this just pushed back to 2027 or removed completely.
Hey, stop pushing your button. So sorry, just sometimes, just so we all aware, sometimes the cameras show up on the screen, it just takes a couple minutes for it to kick in.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. Yes, at this point in time, if we can push it back until we have answers, that would be great. But we're still uncertain as to what's going to happen with the fields. So at this point in time, we can remove it from the budget.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman, a follow-up?
No, thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Okay, so the motion is right now to push back the school field service project to 2027. Any more discussion? Going to call the question. All in favor? Carried. I need a motion to continue after 8 p.m. Councilor Norberg?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll motion that for a continuance to continue after 8 p.m.
Thank you. Seconder? I'll second it. Just to, I mean, I believe we should debate it. I think we got to do that. Okay, discussion. I'll be honest, I'm going to hit before Councilor Norberg. I will not support the motion to continue after 8 p.m. Not only are we in budget, and we've been spending 3 hours at numbers and discussion, staff has been here a lot longer than us. Councilor Norberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm also opposed to the motion. I think, our reasonable debate starts to deteriorate after this point, and it gets worse and worse later on. As much as I want to get it done, we have quite a bit ahead of us, and we should just give it its time. Thanks.
Just before I call the question, Ms. Scott, anything from your side, just in regards, I know Fit's still on Zoom. Is there anything they just want to say finally before we do this vote?
I will ask the FIT team if there is anything that they would like to make sure that council is aware of before we adjourn this meeting and set a new date to continue.
Through Mayor and Council, no, we've made good progress, so there's nothing absolutely necessary remaining to go through. Thank you.
Thank you. So the motion on the floor is to continue this meeting past 8 p.m. All in favor? Opposed? All of council and the mayor is opposed. The motion is defeated. I take adjournment. Yeah, it'll be, geez, I gotta go back. It's April 20th. Ms. Scott?
I believe the next proposed date was April 8th. However, Councillor Julich, I believe, was going to be traveling and not available, so we will have to get back to council with and propose the next date.
Okay. Actually, I don't even adjourn it because motion is defeated, right? We don't have to adjourn this. Okay. Good night.